Hi, my name is Dan, and this video is about better input. So getting player input, user input into your Unreal projects. And I'm going to do this in the context of a fairly simple small blueprint. It's part of a series that I'm doing about blueprint scripting, and input is a thing that everybody wants in their games. Of course you want input in your games, and so the thing that I'm starting from here is the third person template, and I have 3 versions of a little blueprint that I've made that's just got a little plate that you can stand on, and in fact these are empty. I've emptied them out so there's nothing in there. In the previous video to this one I showed how to do simple input, but gave caution about that, saying that it is not meant for full-size projects. It's meant for kind of quick and dirty doing stuff. So in the past, at this point, I would be taking people to the project settings. So I will show you what happens if we do that. We go to project settings, and if you scroll down here, there's a thing called input. So I think that this is new to Unreal 5, or it might be 5.1. It certainly exists now, and this has a little message on it saying access and action mappings are now deprecated. Please use enhanced input actions and input mapping contexts instead. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you how to do that. If you want to actually get to grips with using the old style action mappings and access mappings for input, then I do have a video on that, which is back in the old suite of videos that I did for 4 point something. Yeah, so I have a whole load of videos that I did for Unreal before version 5. This is now the version 5 versions. So we're going to close that and go away from that. The new system is part of, I believe it's a plugin at the moment. So if you're going from a completely blank project, you might need to find the plugin to use it. In fact, let's see if we can go and find the plugin. Enhanced input. There we go, and that's ticked. So this is version 1 of the enhanced input plugin, which is selected by default for this third-person template, but it might not be for other projects. I don't actually know. I haven't gone through them all and checked. And this does a similar thing to how it used to be done through the project settings, in that it has inputs and it maps them to actions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly show you what there is that exists already in the third-person template in terms of input stuff, and then we'll go through creating our own input and mapping it so that it can be used by this blueprint here. So we're going into the third person, and there's a folder here, inputs, and here we've got IMC default. We'll come back to that in a second and go into the actions. There are 3 actions here: jump, look, and move. Okay, and if you double click on one of these, I've actually got jump open there. You just see some properties in here, consume inputs in there, and it's the thing that's important here is it's a digital input, so it's a boolean. It's either on or it's off. So it's basically a button to say on or off. If we go back out and have a look at the move, we'll see that's an axis 2D. It's a vector 2D, so that's usable by joysticks and thumbsticks on controllers, etc. Yeah, so we got 3 of these. We've got the look as well. Might as well open that up. Same, it's an axis 2D. I'm going to close those down. We will create our own one of these in a minute. And then, so all that asset does is tell you what kind of input you've got and just gives it a name. And it doesn't do anything more than that, but actually what it's doing is that is creating a usable action that you can put in scripts. So as you see, it's an input action. So it creates this, it creates usable event, sorry, is the word that I mean. And the context is the thing that maps the event to actual controls or keys. So if we've got IMC defaults here, so the IMC stands for input mapping context. If I double click on that, I'm going to zoom in so we can see a bit more what's going on here. We've actually got the 3 different actions here, which are the jump, move, and lock. If we click on that, which I've just done to close it down, jump is mapped to the spacebar, a gamepad face button bottom, what on earth, yes, bottom button, or touch 1. So that's usable in different different platforms. The move, let's see what that's mapped to, WASD, up, down, left, right, gamepad. The look is linked to the mouse XY or a gamepad right thumbstick. There we go. So that maps different controls for different platforms to the same action, and then we can use the actions inside. There are a few wrinkles to setting that up, so we'll just have a quick look at how that's done in the third-person character. So there's the third-person character is the thing that you actually move around. It's that that character that's got a body that moves around. And inside here we've got on the event begin play again. Let's zoom in. There's a little bit of toing and froing to get the controller from that, and then it's got a box here which is the get enhanced input local player subsystem, and it's checking that it's a valid one, and then it's adding the mapping context, and you can see that that's the IMC default. So that's adding the mapping context to the player controller. Okay, and then once it's been added to the controller, you then can have these actions, sorry, these events that come from the action. So this is where it's triggered. Okay, so that's the camera, that's the movement, and that's the jump here. And we've just got triggered and completed here for starting and stopping. And these functions start the make the jump happen, but also it makes the animations happen as well. That's way beyond what we're doing in this video. So I've done a lot of looking at what is already there. Let's get into the process of making our own. So I'm going to go back to the third person map, and we're going to make our own input action first. I'm going to go back up to the top of the content. I'm going to right click and choose input and find an input action. And I'm just going to call it, I'm just going to use that IA_enable. And this is an action we could use in all sorts of different settings if we wanted, for opening doors, for picking up things. In this case, we're just going to use it for doing the rotation of these, making these little plates rotate, spinning plates. So I'm going to double click on that and bring it up and have a quick look. And by default, this is a digital bool. It consumes the input, and that's fine. I'm all right with that. And I don't need to do anything else. I can just leave that as is and just click save. So I'll zoom back out again and close that down. Now I could, if I wanted to, add that to the existing context. So I could just do that by opening up the IMC defaults. Zoom in. Get the right one. And I can just add another mapping here, and I could add mapping for the IA enable in here and stick that on a key. And that will be the E key. What I'm going to do though is I'm just going to quickly show you that creating your own context. So you can do it either way. You can either add it to an existing context if there is one, but you may be in a situation where you need to create your own. So this little bin thing here will remove that mapping from this context, we're going to create a different context. Zoom out. Zooming in and out all the time. It's great. So go back to our content, and I'm going to do right-click, choose input, and import mapping context. And so once you know what you're doing here, actually it's quite straightforward. It is a little bit more complex than it used to be, but it does give more versatility than you used to have, because you can switch on and off sets of controls much more easily through this new system. I'm going to call this IMC mine, because I'm feeling possessive, and that started saving part way through, so I've just got an M9, right. So this now has no actions in it yet, so I'm going to add a mapping, and I'm going to choose enable here, and I'm going to get it triggered from the E key, so I'm just going to go to the keyboard, and just prove to myself the versatility. I'm going to close that down. I'm going to add another control binding, and I'm going to also do the, let's have another key, let's have the, what is that? Why is there two keyboards there? Okay. Let's going to have the G key as well, just for fun. All right. And so that now should be triggered by either the E key or the G key. I need to save the asset and zoom out. Now we need to do a couple of things. The first one is, at this moment in time, we've got this context, but it's not being used. So we need to make sure this context is being used. And if you remember in the third person character, which is part of the third person template, it's got this thing on it, event begin player. We need to do it slightly differently, because we could do it in here. We could add it just onto the end of here, but I'm going to show you that you can do it elsewhere. So I'm going to go into my my plate. There's nothing in this here, and I'm just going to do event begin play. I'll zoom in quite a lot on that, and I'm going to get the player controller, because that's what it needs to be mapped to. The third person character has a player controller attached to it. In fact, it has a controller, which could be a player controller or it could be an AI controller. So that's why it goes about this slightly differently. So this is just allows us to get hold of the player controller index 0, which is, if you've got a one-player game, is the one that you want. However, in order to do that mapping, we've got to get enhanced. There it is, and it's knowing that name. Get enhanced input local player subsystem from there. And the way I learned how to do that is because I looked at it here and saw it. And so if you want to know, if you can't remember what that is, you need to find it, come into the third person template and look for it. Okay, and then in there we need to add, let's see if I can get this right from the top of my head, action. I'm going to try context and see what it brings in. It'll help if I can write add mapping context. There we go. So we'll get execution into there, and we can choose. So IMC mine, that's the mapping context. We've got a couple of things in here that I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen. I don't know what options is, don't know what's going to happen with priority. Let me just double check the third person. Doesn't do anything to that, so I'm going to trust it to leave it as it is. The other thing that I need to do is, as we did before on the last video, this blueprint will not by default accept input. So we need to switch that on as well. So we're going to do enable input. I don't want to do it off there, I want to do it off here. We go enable input. And this also wants a reference to the player controller, but it wants the proper thing, not this enhanced input local player subsystem malarkey. So that now should activate that mapping context and enable input. Actually, it'll try and activate it several times because I've got 3 versions of this. So it's a little bit wasteful, but it seems to be fine and work okay. And then in order to trigger things, now if you remember in the third person here we have these big boxes, which are the event boxes from those actions, and I'm going to do the same in here, and I'm going to do, now what did I call it? IA enable, and that's come up as an enhanced action event. And here we are, we've got this thing with all these pins coming out, triggered and completed, started and cancelled. I don't know what the difference is between some of these. Ongoing, I think, is a loop where if it's still being processed, it can, not quite sure. I don't fully understand all these, but I know to use triggered and completed. So what I'm going to do is to switch on and off the rotation, which we did in the last video as well, just doing it using the more simple input. So enable. So there was a quick pause there while I checked it out. In fact, enable's wrong. Activate is the word that I want. This just underlines the ongoing thing, which is one of the biggest problems with Blueprint, visual scripting and Blueprint, is finding the right node. So I want activate, and in fact that enable I had was something different. So I have no idea what it would have done. And I think it would be deactivate. There we go. Deactivate. We'll do that from triggered and from completed. And hopefully, if we've done everything right, then this is going to work. So we're in. Wonderful. It does work. So we've got we've gone through the whole process of creating an action, an input action, and a input mapping context, and then inside our script we have enabled we've added the mapping context to the player controller, and we've enabled inputs, and then we've used that input to start and stop the rotating movement here. And this new system of doing control is the one that Unreal are obviously trying to push us into using. It obviously has the ability to have more than one control mapped, and I haven't tested it, so I will. This was me pressing the E key, this is me pressing the G key. Yeah, they're both working. So I hope that gives you enough to be able to get started with your own control systems. That's it from me for now.